There was a version of me that I never saw coming. She didn't arrive loudly. She didn't crash into my life or make some dramatic entrance. She moved in quietly, one small compromise at a time, one justified reaction, one "it's fine" that wasn't really fine. And by the time I noticed her, she had already rearranged the furniture. Hi, welcome back. Or if this is your first time here, I'm really glad you're here. I'm in the kitchen today making jollof rice. The onions are soft, the tomatoes are simmering, everything smells warm. But today isn't really about the rice. It's about something I've been sitting with for a while. So cook with me, and let's talk. I was becoming my worst fear. Not the dramatic kind, not failure, not loss, the quiet kind, the kind that shows up in how you respond to people. I was becoming bitter, and I didn't even realize it. As a widely traveled lady, I understood that in different cultures, one thing was clear. Character matters. Not just what you achieve, not just how you present yourself, who you are. And somewhere along the way, I drifted from who I actually wanted to be. It started with disappointment, small ones, repeated ones, plans falling through, effort not matched, people not showing up the way I hoped. Nothing dramatic, but enough to shift something in me. Without consciously deciding, I made a quiet rule: feel less, get hurt less. It sounded wise. I stopped crying at things that deserved tears. I called it strength. I stopped talking about what hurt me. I called it privacy. I stopped trusting easily. I called it discernment. And some of that was growth. Boundaries are healthy. Experience teaches you. But here's the question that changed everything for me. Was it strength or was it shut down? There's a difference. Armor protects you, but it also blocks everything, not just the bad. When you shut out the person who hurt you, you might also shut out the person trying to love you. I started noticing distance, shorter conversations, less warmth, more suspicion. And the worst part? I thought I was evolving. Let me tell you the signs, because I wish someone had told me. The first sign was that I started assuming the worst about people, quietly, internally. If someone did something kind, instead of simply receiving it, I'd ask myself, what do they want? What's the catch? Suspicion felt intelligent, but eventually it became isolating. The second sign was that apologizing became harder, not because I was always right, but because apology requires vulnerability, and vulnerability felt unsafe. So I would justify or withdraw or wait for the other person to go first. Bitterness makes you rigid, and rigidity over time breaks things. The third sign was the most confronting. I had started calling my bitterness by better names. I called it standards. I called it discernment. I called it experience. And here's why that's dangerous. Those things are good, but bitterness is clever. It borrows the language of wisdom. It dresses itself up as growth, and you don't realize it running your decisions. Until one ordinary day, someone I genuinely care about said something kind to me, pure, uncalculated, just kind. And instead of warmth, I felt suspicion. I felt myself bracing. And in that moment, something in me went still. When did I become someone who can't just receive kindness? That question changed me. Not dramatically, not overnight, but it created awareness, and awareness interrupts drift. So let me ask you something. Sit with it honestly. Is there anywhere in your life right now where you're calling bitterness by another name? Is there a relationship you've labeled too much effort, when maybe you're just too hurt to try again? Is there an opportunity you've dismissed as not for me, when maybe you're just afraid to hope? Is there a version of yourself you're calling realistic, when maybe you've quietly stopped believing good things are still possible? When I asked myself those questions, I realized something deeper. Underneath the bitterness was fear. Fear of being hurt again. Fear of trusting the wrong person. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of being disappointed. The armor wasn't strength, it was protection. And protection has its place, but when it becomes permanent, it changes you. The real work wasn't about forcing myself to be less bitter. It was about learning to hold fear differently. When I felt myself shutting down, I started pausing, asking, what am I actually feeling right now? Most of the time, the answer wasn't complicated. I'm tired. I'm scared. I'm hurt. Just that. Nothing more complicated than that. And there is something quietly powerful about being able to say the true, simple thing instead of the defended, armored thing. It doesn't fix everything, but it stops the drift. It stops you from moving further away from yourself. Softness is not weakness. Staying open after you've been hurt, after you've been disappointed, after things have been hard, staying open is one of the most courageous things a person can do. It's not naive, it's not foolish, it's not the sign of someone who hasn't learned anything. It is a choice, a deliberate, informed, eyes wide open choice to say, I refuse to let what has happened to me become the ceiling of what I believe is possible for me. That's not weakness. That is extraordinary strength. And I had to learn the difference between the two, because I had genuinely confused them for years. Growth is not loud. I think I expected, when I finally started doing the real work, that I would feel it dramatically, that there would be a moment of clarity so big I would know everything had changed. It wasn't like that. It was more like, one morning I woke up and I wasn't immediately bracing. One afternoon, someone said something kind to me and I just received it, like it was simple, like it was allowed. Those small moments, that's where the real change lives. Not in the breakthrough, in the quiet, ordinary mornings where you are just a little more like the person you want to be.
I'm not fully there yet. I want to say that clearly, because I think there's a version of this story that wraps up too neatly, and life doesn't do that. People don't do that. Growth is a direction, not a destination, and some days I still feel the pull toward the old patterns, the shutdown, the guard. But now I know what it is, and knowing what it is, actually naming it, means I have a choice. And every time I choose differently, even in a small way, I like who I am a little more. That's enough. That's genuinely enough. Before I go, I want to hear from you, because I truly believe I'm not the only one who has been here. So in the comments, I want you to tell me this. Is there something in your life right now that you've been calling strength, but that might actually be shutdown? You don't have to be specific if you don't want to. You can just say yes, or I see it, or I needed this today. But I genuinely want to know. This channel exists for exactly this kind of conversation, and your words matter here. Thank you for being here today. Really, if this kind of space is what you're looking for, honest conversations, good food, and a little bit of quiet in the middle of a loud world, then you're home. Subscribe to Just Over Cooking, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.